MatPat has made a previous theory that we watched before, and I think we're gonna watch this one. Film theory: The Tragic Secrets of the Walten Files. So be sure to subscribe to MatPat and Martin Walls, and let's jump straight in, shall we, to the meat and gravy and potatoes. Adam Driver. Oh, he's gone.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, where I wish I had a shadow man feed me when lights go off.
And I might go now, because, guys, I got some weird ass homework to do. Oh, that's some weird... You guys are getting some weird homework nowadays. Ass homework? Jesus.
Oh, no. What is this thing? Oh, you're a horrific monster. On second thought, maybe not. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Walten Files. For those of you who don't remember, the Walten Files is the analog horror series from Chilean creator Martin Walls, with a story that's gonna melt your brain and a sound design that's gonna melt your ears. Apologies, headphone users. It's a story about the now defunct Bonds Burgers, an animatronic-themed restaurant chain founded by business partners Jack Walten and Felix Kranken. Through the first two installments of the series, we learned that these two men had a falling out, and that Bonds had been forced to close shortly after its opening due to some mysterious event called the Incident of 1974. Honestly, though, it feels more accurate to call this the Incidents of 1974, considering that this is the year of Jack's disappearance, his wife Rosemary's untimely death and stuffing into Shaw the sheep, and another woman named Susan Woodings winding up inside Banny the bunny. I mean, it was a busy year for the franchise. After the closure due to the incidents of 1974, the animatronics were relocated out into the woods, where they proceeded to take the lives of a few more victims as they lay in wait for the return of the mysterious character named Sophie, a former caretaker of the Bonds Burgers facility that we briefly saw in the very first episode of the series. A person that the animatronics are particularly keen on getting their hands on, as evidenced by them killing Brian Stells because he, quote, looked like her. And as of last episode, that's where we left things off. Almost. There was one final video I hinted at towards the end of that last episode. By piecing together flashes of a URL left at the beginning and end of the Relocate project upload, we're brought to an unlisted video titled Lucky You, where we see... Wait, what is this? What is this? It's a clearly laid out timeline of events?
FNAF, eat your heart out.
I'm crying because I'm so happy. Also, watch the endoskeleton boogie down. If there was any lingering confusion about the order of this story, Lucky You is basically the teacher's answer key, and it confirms everything that we talked about last upload. However, there's still one major reveal here: the return of Sophie.
You must be so confused about what you saw.
Sophie's the one who plays the game, right?
For I'm going to tell you a story of broken people, beautiful people, safety and pills. Sophie.
This now pretty much marks Sophie as our main character. Remember, the first thing that we hear in episode 1 of the series is backwards text that gives us this message. You finally start to remember that old day. They will look out for you soon.
So Sophie's been taking pills to numb down the memories of something that's happened.
This whole story from its opening moments has been an attempt to wake up long dormant memories inside Sophie's mind. And now we have a fuller picture of what's going on. Sophie was once a caretaker of Bonds Burgers. She survives a tragic accident or a Bon attack, something that would cause her memories to be locked away behind a gate of trauma and medication. So the question now is, what exactly are those memories that need to be unlocked? For that, we finally
maybe
turn
it's
to
best
episode
not
3,
to know.
Bunny Farm, the last canonical installment in the series and the one where we watch as Sophie's memories come flooding back. The premise for this hour-long upload is that Sophie, now age 22, is playing through the old Bunny Smiles Incorporated arcade game Bunny Farm. Along the way, she's presented with her family's tragic backstory, forced to face literal corpses, to which she responds,
but that was very confusing.
Understatement of the year there, so as she plays through the game, she taps into
Confusing. Freaking corpses in front of her. There's just dead bodies everywhere. Oh, Jesus, what's going on here then? What's going on here?
glitches and hidden files that provide us with massive lore dumps. These reveals ultimately break down into 3 major chunks. The first is Susan Wooding's audio log number 3. It's worth noting we've yet to hear numbers 1 and 2. Through this file,
What's
we learn
this
that
then?
Susan was the engineer for the animatronics, the one that essentially built them. When they're found malfunctioning on opening day, well, this happens.
Damn,
This
man.
tells us a
Got
few
some
things.
pipes.
First, that they begin to malfunction after Jack's disappearance, but before anyone actually gets stuffed. 2, it confirms what we suspected, that she is in fact the one inside of the Banny suit, and that she doesn't appear to have any family connection to the Waltons themselves. Interestingly, based on this teeny tiny text right here that's really tough to read, we see that she's still alive inside of the suit somehow, and that her stomach feels weird, which probably connects back to
Hunger.
the Shadow Man feeding her when lights go off that we saw happen in the relocate.
Hang on. Feeding her at nighttime. What's he feeding her with, eh? That's very sus.
Project. And finally, Susan's tape here brings up an interesting loose thread. Susan says this.
Chris left some hours ago, and Felix didn't even show up.
She mentions someone named Chris. Now, earlier in Bunny Farm, we see that Chris is the name for one of the saved game files on the arcade cabinet. But the name actually comes up even earlier than that. The first time we actually hear about Chris is way back in the first upload of the series, where Chris is the one that ultimately sends Brian Stells to the animatronic storage facility and ultimately to his death. It's hard to hear exactly, but Chris's name is definitely mentioned here.
Anyway, so Chris told me this place hasn't been working since about 78, 79.
So, could Chris be the identity of our Shadow Man? The one person who has a connection to the franchise since its earliest days and has survived
Well, it's
till
Pinocchio.
today, feeding the animatronics at night? It remains to be seen, but Chris is definitely suspect number 1. The second major chunk of this upload gives us the
Sussy Baka.
identity of yet another animatronic, this time Bozoo the Ringmaster. Bunny Farm is very explicit in showing us that a man named Charles has been stuffed inside of the suit, and that he's been missing since
714, missing wheel, 714.
5 days before the restaurant shut down. Some scary breathing and
Hey, Noctia, thank you for the prime, mate. I appreciate that.
jump scares later, we get this line. A line that's only visible via the closed captions. I don't remember my face. Chris and now Charles are 2 major loose threads that we have coming out of this upload. We know that they're important to the story, but we don't quite know their role.
They'll oh, hello. Well, Martin will, solve them. Hopefully in a very, not so inconspicuous way.
Last is the most tragic chunk of the 3, which, is saying a lot considering that we just went through 2 horrific murders. Through a series of redacted diary entries, we learn how Felix's marriage to his wife Linda falls apart, and how Felix has increasingly turned towards alcohol for some reason. His problems actually date back to 1964, 10 years before any of the Bonds Burgers drama started to kick up. In fact, they don't start pitching the restaurant idea until a year later in 1965 to a company called Cyberfun Tech. So it seems like trouble was brewing in Felix's life much earlier than most Walten file theorists suspect. But it all wouldn't fall apart until a fateful phone call when Jack asks Felix to take his 2 kids
Yeah, this
and
was
Molly
pretty
to their
bad.
school dance.
I need to stay at the workshop to finish the paperwork, and Ross is taking Sophie to the dentist. We were wondering if you could pick him up for the event and take him home later. Sure, I can do that. Really? Yeah, sure. Oh, thanks a lot, man. You're lifesaver, Felix.
Jack would soon find out that Felix would not, in fact, be a lifesaver. But before we get to how, you know what is a lifesaver? Our sponsor for this portion.
All right. Well, we're gonna. Hang on. What's the sponsor here? Google.
Depend on convenience over security.
People reuse passwords because it's convenient, even if it's. We learned that Linda had officially.
Okay, so that's about some kind
So
of
if you're
Google.
Interested in learning more about how Google helps protect your information online, visit g.co/saferpasswords. Easier option, link is in the top line of the description. Thank you again to Google for keeping me safe for the last decade and for sponsoring this
Yeah, I don't. Why
episode.
does Google need to sponsor anyone? They're like one of the richest companies in the world, aren't they?
Now, back to the fictional scary stuff. As you might have predicted, Felix, with his alcohol issue, is not fit to drive that night. Via the diary entries, we learned that Linda had officially left him earlier that day, May 2nd, and after drinking more at the the school dance, which I guess things were different at school dances back in the 70s, he gets lost on the drive back home and ultimately winds up in a horrific car crash that kills both of Jack's children, Ed and Molly. Terrified of what he's done and what he could possibly tell Jack, he buries the two kids as a cover-up for his actions.
Jesus.
This, in turn, is the memory that Sophie needed to unlock.
You must find them, Sophie.
This just got so much deeper than I thought, and now I think I know what's happening.
In the end, we clearly see Ed and Molly, depicted as two red children, rise out of the ground and possess their gray stuffed animal, Rocket Rabbit. Two children sharing one character.
Golden
Wait,
Freddy.
Is Rocket just the Walten Files equivalent of Golden Freddy? Did everyone realize that Golden Freddy actually had two spirits inside of one suit before I did? What are the dates of this one? Walten Files, okay. Golden Freddy Spirit Theory. Okay, I was ahead of it by a little bit. And then Bunny Farm ends on that uplifting note. From here, we get one final check-in with our happy little animatronic family, a final sequence of jump scares, and that's it. A somber ending to an intense 3-video ride of horror and tragedy. And honestly, it's a pretty tightly written episode. In this one extended upload, we get a lot of the answers that we were looking for last time. Who is Sophie? Why is she important? What she's supposed to remember? Check, check, and check. We know all those things now. But for everything that it explicitly answers, Bunny Farm still leaves one of our biggest questions open-ended. The biggest being, where's Jack? His frantic phone calls to Felix the night of the crash asking about his children are, to date, the last time we actually see or hear from him. Sometime in the next month after those calls, he disappears, the robots start acting funny, the restaurant opens, Rosemary gets stuffed into Shaw, and things quickly close. But whether that's Jack getting stuffed into Bon, Jack stuffing himself into Bon, William Afton style, or him just literally disappearing out of grief and despair in a quest to find some way to bring his kids back, it's unclear. After all, someone caused the animatronics to go haywire before opening day of the restaurant. Could it have been Jack and his grief? Maybe. The evidence we have right now points to Jack being dead, or stuffed into the Bond suit like you might expect. In video 1, we get a brief glimpse of Jack's missing poster, which comes accompanied with a message of, "Let me out of here." And considering that Susan in Bunny Farm says that she's alive inside the Banny suit, stuffed people in this universe appear to be conscious inside of their animatronic prisons. For more proof of Jack's fate, though, look no further than the actual farm in Bunny Farm. You'll notice that even though the game in question is called Bunny Farm, the farm actually belongs to a character named Pete the Hippo. I guess Hippo Farm doesn't have the same ring to it. Anyway, during Sophie's playthrough, there's a lingered-on shot of a plaque describing the whole area as being founded by a hippo named Bobby with two children, Johnny and Pete. Bobby, who's now deceased, year unknown, had promised to build the greatest barn ever. Later, this plaque changes to instead reference the deaths of Ed and Molly Walten, which, by proxy, would mean that Bobby, our dead hippo, is then the stand-in for Jack Walten, our dead or stuffed protagonist. Connected to that, who or what is Bon the animatronic bunny? It's easy to assume that Bon and Jack are one and the same. If the bunny-shaped animatronic rabbit foot fits, wear it, you know? But I'm just not convinced. On one hand, the Springtrap connection of a mourning father losing his
It would make sense for Jack to be in one of the main animatronic characters.
Put the pieces of a broken family back together is hard to deny. On the other, though, I just don't see Jack, a loving father, actively luring his loving wife Rosemary to her death in the guise of Bon. Plus, we get a few additional visual clues as to what might really be going on here. Throughout Bunny Farm, we get the merging and separating of Ed and Molly as these two red child spirits. We, of course, see them preparing
They remind me of the twins from The Shining.
School dance on the front steps of their house, and we see both of their faces multiple times around Rocket Rabbit, making it crystal clear that they're inside of that beloved toy. But in a weird couple of creative decisions, we also see them split out of Bon multiple times. During the night of the dance, we see the Bon player character wander around the school before passing behind a wall, and suddenly on the other side, we see Ed and Molly appear to hunt for their uncle. And during the final jump scares of the Bunny Farm video, we see Bon glitching with overlays of two child spirits, one boy and one girl. So is Bon responding to the presence of these two lost children? Are they inside of him? His murderous intentions born out of their collective rage? Again, just like we see with Golden Freddy over in FNAF Land, was Rocket just a glorified vessel to carry him from one body to the next? It's really unclear right now. Lastly, though, I want to talk about the identity of Charles.
But then why would they lure their mum into getting stuffed and killed.
At this point, we have a clear idea of pretty much everyone else in the story. Jack, Rosemary, Sophie, Ed, and Molly are all one family. Felix was a friend and partner who ultimately separates from his wife, Linda. Susan Woodings was an animatronic designer who just seems to be an employee kind of hanging out. But everything about Charles outside of his name is still a big question mark, despite him being one of the main focuses of Bunny Farm. That said, I think I have an idea about his role in all this. And the solution doesn't come in the form of secret unlisted videos or backwards text. It comes instead in the form of Martin Walls' other non-canon animated specials. Mixed into the release of the Walten Files is a pair of animated holiday specials. The Christmas special called Bozoo.
That was a good one. I remember that one.
Special entitled The Mysterious House.
I think I watched all of
feature
these.
alternate versions of our beloved mascot characters. Both also start off as seemingly normal old-time holiday specials before becoming the corrupted nightmare fuel that you'd associate with this series. To quickly summarize, Mysterious House is about a pair of trick-or-treaters who fall victim to a group of serial killers disguised as versions of Bon, Shaw, Billy, and a bizarre new character called TVA. Bozoo's Ghosts, meanwhile, is a surreal remix of a Christmas carol that puts Bozoo, our ringmaster, in the role of the rich miser Ebenezer Scrooge, and features a death scene where the censored face looks very similar to the contortions on Charles that we see throughout Bunny Farm. Now, I'm not suggesting that Martin Walls is lying about these being non-canon videos or anything. What I am saying, though, is that they might be testing out ideas or inspired by things that are canon to the actual story. And if that's the case, Bozoo being both a ringmaster, i.e. the head of a circus performance, as well as the stand-in for Ebenezer Scrooge, literature's most famous money-grubbing boss, seems to be an intentional choice. It implies that Charles was, in some way, a higher-up, a boss, maybe even the man supervising it all. Consider this. As is common with the series, there's one final hidden URL inside of Bunny Farm, with a piece at the top of the video and a second at the end. Following that link leads you to a video called Guilty, where we watch the tragic downfall of Felix.
He looks like the freaking dude from Ratatouille.
Enthusiastic young boss with a dream to a substance abuser lamenting his actions. And it's in this video that we start to track the history of their company. Jack and Felix found Bunny Smiles Incorporated back in 1967. Just two guys with a strange shared dream of bringing animatronic fun to the masses. But in 1972, they sell to a new company, Cyber Fun Tech. Notice the logos and disclaimers on the title cards for all these videos. Felix even calls it out.
It's crazy how far we made it. Just everything, really. The Cyberfun Tech deal, the Bonds Burgers project, it's incredible.
And this is a part of the franchise's lore that's really yet to be explored. The need for Jack and Felix to actively involve a third partner, possibly in the form of whoever actually ran Cyberfun Technologies. A third partner who has monetary leverage to demand favors from one or both men to keep the business going in the direction that he wanted. This, I suspect, is Charles, the mystery face that lives inside of Bozoo. Hence that character being depicted as
the circus leader,
both ringmaster among the robots and as Scrooge in his animated special. It's my belief that we're gonna learn that Charles is ultimately responsible for Felix's mental collapse. Anyway, with the new teaser out.
Wait, what?
For
why?
We may learn these answers sooner than later. But at the
okay, because it's not known why Felix went off on like a alcohol
what
abuse.
I love about the series is that it's a story about human characters in a world full of animatronics, not a story about animatronic characters in a world full of humans. What makes the Walten Files such an intensely disturbing story is that it's a family tragedy. Sure, there's certainly terrifying imagery and sound design, but it's just set dressing for real people going through intensely horrific situations. Life, a lot of times, is scary enough, and that's all you need. The killer bunny robot?
Charles is Adam Driver.
That's
I thought that was
the cherry on top. But hey,
I thought that was what's his name? The other dude.
Just a theory, a film theory, and cut.
Well, that was interesting for sure. I mean, the series is very like I feel like parts of the story are in like here, and other parts are going to be in later. You know, to make sense of the bits down here, but to actually like organize it in that way and to like, you know ahead of time how you're going to do it is a stroke of genius. And I think the Walten Files is like one of the best ARGs on the internet for sure. But yeah, there we go. That was film theory.